Hello, everyone. I am Dalton Burdett with the Movie Nights, and welcome back to another Movie Nights movie review. But I am not alone. I'm with the great Nicholas Iricchio. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I am feeling dopey today.
Haha! There, you back at it again. Looking very colorful where you're at, buddy. It's so weird filming these during the day.
Yeah, I know. I realized how bright and orange hue colored my office is. It's like I'm in Mexico on Breaking Bad.
Yes, it's exactly like that. Perfect, perfect. But guys, today we're here to talk about Snow White. This is the live action remake of the classic Disney animated film Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The remake stars Rachel Zegler, Gal Gadot, and countless other cast members. It's directed by Marc Webb, director of movies such as 500 Days of Summer and The Amazing Spider Man. And to briefly touch on it, I thought all of the trailers to this movie were absolute garbage. I did not like any of the trailers. I really was not looking forward to seeing the movie. And there were other controversies surrounding it. Like, there were a lot of people who didn't like some early comments that Rachel Zegler made, which I thought were kind of blown out of proportion anyway. But it didn't help the fact that I thought the trailers looked terrible. And then, the Gal Gadot of it all. But I have to say, to be completely honest with you, I was very pleasantly surprised by the movie. I literally walked into this thinking, oh, this is going to be trash. Like, I have to do this for the channel just because it's a big movie. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. Now, this movie has a lot of flaws, don't get me wrong. It's not like a masterpiece, Oscar winner, or anything like that. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I thought it was a good movie. And I did not think it was going to be at all when I stepped into the theater, which kind of just goes to show the power to it as well, because it completely exceeded my expectations in that way. We'll get into specifics a little bit more, but I kind of just want to get your general thoughts first.
No, I mean, I guess saying pleasantly surprised is a good terminology here, but I mean, it kind of was like I was expecting train wreck, and I got like it was fine, I guess. I don't
Okay.
really have a strong desire to rewatch it, but I wasn't like bored or like it wasn't grueling.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I think I liked it a little bit more than you did, because I do want to rewatch it, and I want to rewatch it under the guise of I now know what I'm getting, so I want to
Mhm.
see how it's going to be from that perspective. Kind of diving into my thoughts, I loved pretty much all of the songs in the movie. Some of them, the classic ones. There are a lot of new songs as well, and I think that one, Rachel Zegler or Ziegler, however you pronounce it. Um, oh my God, what a great singer! Like, we've known this. We know this from West Side Story. We knew this from Hunger Games. But, like, my God, she knocks it out of the park with her voice. Personally, and I know that this divides the friend group that we're in, I think she's a phenomenal actress, and I've never disliked a performance that she's given. And this is no exception. I thoroughly enjoyed her performance as Snow White. I think she is one of the best things about the movie to me, especially I'm not going to spoil anything, but the way that she's able to kind of embody kindness and hope in one person, I genuinely bought it. And yes, it's very Disneyfied, it's very cutesy, it's a PG movie, but I bought the performance as this is the person that people would look up to for that sense of hope, for that sense of kindness, especially in her interactions with the seven dwarf characters. Particularly Dopey. There's a really great storyline they build with their relationship that I thought was really well done. Speaking of the dwarves, I thought they were excellent in the movie. I thought that they were, their whimsy, their banter was all very funny. One of the hardest I've laughed in a theater all year is a joke that comes from Doc in the movie that I won't say, but it was so funny. Like, there are so many great sequences with them. I also think that the set design, for the most part, was okay. There's some of it that's a bit overproduced, but like the castle set looks great. When they eventually saturate the forest when she gets there, and it looks very good when they do that. Um, and there are a couple things I'm a bit let down by. Like, I'm a bit let down by the huntsman character. I thought that they could have utilized him a bit better. I was a little bit let down by some of the pacing of the third act, because I thought the first act was paced rather well, but the third act is paced very oddly, and the movie feels a lot longer than it is. The ending also has some things that was a great idea on paper, but the execution didn't quite nail it, and it just didn't kind of live up to the first half of the movie. And then we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Gal Gadot as the evil queen. It's not a good performance. I'm just gonna kind of leave it at that. Like, does she have one or two moments where you're like, oh, that was not horrible? Sure. But for the most part, it's not good. It's not a good performance at all. I often found
Contrary to
myself,
the thumbs up on your screen right
yeah,
now.
yeah, it keeps doing that because of my damn settings. But it was one of those things where as the movie was playing and we were away from the evil queen and we were either with the dwarfs or with Snow White, I was thoroughly like enjoying myself. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm actually really pleasantly surprised. And it would cut back to the evil queen, and at one point I audibly was just like, ugh, like, it was really, the performance is bad. It brings the movie down, and you watch it and you're like, I can think of several different actors that could have done a better job here, and I've been, critical of Gal Gadot's performances in the past. I think she has given some good performances. I think she's capable, but you have to give her the right role, and she's just dramatically miscast here. And it's painfully obvious. One other positive I want to touch on before I throw it to you is I like most of the changes they make to the original film. I think where Snow White comes from in this film, I really enjoyed. I think the love interest and what they change there, I thought was really interesting and honestly a really compelling part of the movie to me. I was very interested in that story. And the performance of the love interest, Jonathan is the character's name. I'm going to pull up the actor's name here.
I believe it's
Andrew
Andrew Burnap.
Burnap,
Yeah.
I thought gave a great performance in the movie as well. And sometimes in these live action remakes, like that performer or that role can be the hit or miss or the make or break of like, is this going to be another thing that works or doesn't work? And I thought it worked. So, overall, I liked the movie. I was very pleasantly surprised by it. It has a lot of flaws that are, there to see, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'll let you kind of dive into your more specific thoughts, Nicholas.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was fine. I think some of the newer songs were really well done. I think some weren't personally. There was one song called "Princess Problems" that
Mm-hmm.
the Jonathan character sings. I really did like that one.
Same.
In terms of an original song, I think in terms of pros of the movies, I really liked the dwarves and that whole dynamic and their whole sequences. Like the hi ho sequence, I thought was probably the best element of the film. Same with
Mm-hmm.
the whistle while you work. I was gonna say this is a weird thing to get hung up on, like a tiny detail, but the sort of the rigging of the scene of the whistle while you work, like the way that Rachel Zegler was interacting with all of the CGI'd elements and how they were switching from like a practical broom to the dwarf catching,
Mm-hmm.
like a CGI'd one. I thought that that all looked flawless. Personally, I was very impressed by that.
Yeah.
Some of the art direction, I think on a whole, it does have that sort of oversaturated, flat, backlit feel to it, which is unfortunately just sort of a standard that comes with making the movies. Now, I thought Rachel Zegler did a fine job. I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan. There's that theater kid energy that, kind of seeps through with all actors like that. So sometimes that's a bit of maybe a hurdle for me. But in terms of playing the character Snow White, I thought she did an excellent job. She has a phenomenal singing voice. Gal Gadot, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I think that it was just really it was a miscast. Ultimately they went probably for the name over someone who could have done just a great job. She tries to chew the scenery and sort of make a meal out of the lines and everything like that, but it just comes across as it just doesn't click. I thought her singing performance was better than her acting performance,
Yeah.
you know.
Fair.
But I really like the dynamic with Snow White and the Jonathan character, and I do like the changes that they made. I like that Jonathan's a bandit instead of like the prince character and stuff like that. And that's really sort of what I will give the movie in terms of an overall positive is that I think that if we're going to keep doing these live action versions of the classics, you know, a lot of times they're really not doing a reimagining. It's pretty much just like cut and dry remake. So I do appreciate that this one actually tried to take the story and elevate it or bring into a different direction. Snow White as a character has a lot of agency in this, and she's the one saving the day ultimately at the end. It's not the prince is gonna come and save the princess, So I did like that change to it, and I hope moving forward maybe that they do take these sort of reimagining liberties with the properties moving forward. Because if you look at stuff like, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, they are kind of just like relatively beat for beat with little changes here and there, but this
Hmm.
one actually felt like they were trying to do something different with it.
Yeah, I mean, and Lion King was basically a shot for shot, except worse. And
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
with.
in the defense of that one though, Jon Favreau said he wanted to make a fully 3D CGI'd Lion King,
And he did.
and he did.
Um, but that's why I also prefer like Mufasa over that film, is because like it actually did something new, unique, and interesting with the story. But I agree with everything you said about Snow White. Like the fact that it made changes for the story they were telling, and none of the changes felt arbitrary either. Like they felt very much so like part of the new story that they were telling.
Mhm.
And to your point about like Snow White being able to like kind of stand up for herself and save the day, it also doesn't do it to like pat themselves on the back. Like it's not like oh, and look, she's doing it herself. There's a great scene with Snow White where people are fighting for her, and she has this moment of like, am I just going to leave them and let them like possibly die for me? Like, no, I'm going to stay with them. I'm going to do what I can. And like in that, like it was part of that character's journey of her wanting to help her people and finding new ways to help. And I thought that it worked great in the film personally. And yeah, like I got to say, of all of the Disney live action remakes, this is probably in the upper tier of them. I would have to really sit down and think about like if I was gonna like look at them and be like, all right, which ones are great, which ones are terrible. It's certainly not the best one, but it's far from the worst one.
I
I
I
enjoyed
think
myself.
if this is the baseline, I'd like this to be considered maybe sort of the baseline of at a minimum quality.
Hmm.
Like I don't think it reaches the highs of like a Jungle Book or I really like Cinderella to be honest with you, and I really did enjoy
Oh,
Pete's
the Kenneth
Dragon.
Branagh one.
Yeah, and if we
Yeah.
count Pete's Dragon, but like I mean the lows of like Dumbo and Lion King, like I
Hmm.
if we can at least churn out Snow Whites,
Yeah.
if
I,
they're gonna keep doing these, so at least try to make them good.
yeah, and like I still think where they peaked with it was Jungle Book. I thought Jungle
Yeah.
Book was the best one. And it's just you're gonna get these varying levels of quality, but I see what you mean of just like at least give me something like this. At least give me something different that's also good and can exceed my expectations a little bit.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly. And I mean, like, yeah, they had Mark Webb doing this. He's a fine director. I wouldn't say there was any standout direction for this movie, but he's a competent filmmaker at the very least, and maybe that's just what they need to make him pass.
Yeah, and like he has bad luck like with studio films. Like we all know the drama behind The Amazing Spider-Man and the drama that eventually happened with this movie of just stuff that's out of his control, especially when he shot the movie like 3 years ago. But it's one of those things where like if you want some good Mark Webb movies, highly recommend everyone go watch 500 Days of Summer. Go watch Gifted, which is another great movie with Chris Evans and oh my gosh, McKenna Grace, is that her name? The girl from Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely go watch that movie. Very good. But yeah, guys, that'll kind of do it from us. Color us kind of pleasantly shocked. I think I like it a little bit more than Nick does, but we went in thinking it was going to be garbage, and we
I mean,
were proven wrong.
I think I'm sitting at like 2.5. I'll be honest.
I'm definitely at 3.
Mhm.
I'm debating if I'm going 3.5. And the reason why I might go 3.5 is because there are a couple of great moments in the movie that like none of the other Disney live action remakes went through the trouble of doing. But like
Mm.
this one did. Like this one has character moments where they were like, we want to show you who this character is and this is how we're going to do it. And it doesn't just tell us about this character, it lets us see it. And I appreciate it. Like the more I sat with the movie after we watched it yesterday, the more I appreciated like those type of moments. So
Mhm.
I'm on the fence between 3 and 3.5, but I wouldn't go higher than 3.5.
Gotcha. Mhm.
Yeah. So guys, what did you think of Snow White once you have a chance to see it? Please let us know in the comments down below. We'd love to get your thoughts. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.